happening again?
Every day.
At Leaf Johnson Automotive Group, you'll love our transparent approach to shopping and exceptional service every time you visit. With 3 convenient locations in Austin, Buda, and Manor, it's easy to come see why.
I love it!
You'll love it at Leaf.
If Missouri is the show-me state, then Lucas showed us what dominance looks like. But farther down the field, drivers showed us great battling. Let's hope we get more thrills like that as we get ready for the Ford Mustang Cup. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Roush Racing driver Joey Atterbury. Joey, this is such a unique track, and it gave us a race yesterday that wasn't like any of the others we've seen this season.
It is a fantastic racetrack that we've got out here in Missouri. 3.97 miles, 19 turns of a roller coaster ride filled with tons of elevation. You see the cars from this amazing drone shot going through that alternate bus stop chicane that is kind of known as turn 6 at this incredibly long circuit. But you're right, a little bit different of a track than we've seen the first handful of races already here this Mustang Cup season. And these drivers, they are relishing the challenge that they've got out here at Ozarks. And that is exactly what it is, Joe. A challenge to get around these dark horse R's around this 19-turn racetrack.
Really is. Now let's go over our 7 drivers here in the Parnelli Cup this afternoon. As Will Lucas has put it on the pole once again, Nick Smither is going to start to his outside there on the front row. Andrew Hordes will start from 3rd today. And then you've got Cale Buell in a much better position to start this race this time. He'll start from P4. Walter Bobko will be 5th today. New car, if you're used to him in previous weekends. It's not the bright red as we're used to. And then you got Shane Griffin starting to his outside. And then finally, Miller Richmond will bring up the tail end of the field. Unfortunately, John Strauss unable to partake in today's race. So it's a slightly smaller field, but still should be a lot of fun out there. And Cale Buell going to have to try and come back after a bit of a failed pass late in the race yesterday. So he's got some redemption, as you can see on the bottom of your screen. The drivers with the red boxes around their number, that's going to be your dark horse drivers. And then the older drivers, the dark horse legends, will have the blue boxes, Joey. So not racing for points against one another, but definitely racing for track position.
Yeah, definitely got those 2 classes out there, but I think when you talk to any racing car driver, they always want to be at the tippy top of the field. That's exactly where Will Lucas has kind of made his home all season long here. This is coming out of what is turn 14, so we're coming into what is Sector 3 here at this Ozarks International Racetrack. And I think when we talk about dominance, Will Lucas has definitely been dominant all this season. Can he kind of pull out that same performance level? At one point, he was turning laps multiple seconds faster than anybody else in this field. Can Nick Smither keep up, or are we going to see that 3-car fight like we saw yesterday between Miller Richmond, Cale Buell, and Andrew Hordes?
Exactly. And it was Chase Cochran who obviously shares the car with Shane Griffin. So you'll see that bright green machine with a different driver in it. And Chase was the one that was able to keep Lucas honest early. Obviously, we're seeing Shane starting much farther back. Will this be a different story at the front, or will Nick Smither find a little bit of pace as we're coming up to the green flag here shortly? We wait for the call at the start line with Lucas having control of the field. And there it is. Green flag is out. The horses are out of the barn here in the Mustang Cup. And it's a very good start for Will Lucas over Smither coming down into the first corner. They disappear over the crest behind them. Looks like Hordes will hold on to that 3rd spot over Buell.
Yeah, our first two cars were able to carve turn one nice and shallow on the apex, but then it was that third car, that purple number 23, that was kind of drifting out wide into turn number one. Got to make sure you've got the brain up to temperature, the tires up to temperature, but you see the front two. Both of these cars and drivers were just over in France a couple weeks ago, racing in that Mustang Challenge event at Le Mans. Will Lucas currently leads Nick Smither.
So far, so good here on this first lap between the two. Nick going to try and hold on as long as he can and maybe take a few tips from what has been a very fast Will Lucas all weekend long. And now, as for the back of the field, for Bobco and Richmond, neither of them got to finish or see the finish of yesterday's race in the Miles Cup. So for them, just getting to the checkered flag going to be a big part of it to maybe try and tick that box, as well as hopefully gather a few more points here in the Parnelli Cup now and help themselves in this championship. One of the unique features of this series is the Saturday race and the Sunday race are two separate championships on their own. Hence why you've got Griffin and Cochran sharing the car. Griffin is running the Parnelli Cup with Cochran running the Miles Cup.
Just watching this outlap here, it's pretty impressive, the performance that this number 34 of Will Lucas has. You see Nick Smither trying to keep touch, but already I'm seeing about 0.8 of a second. No, take that back, a full second faster in sector 1. We're coming up to what is turn number 14, so we're entering what is sector number 3 right here. You see Nick Smither call it about 15, maybe 20 car lengths back as Will Lucas dives down the hill.
Does look like Richmond has managed to get by Griffin, so that bumps him up to 6 over the first lap. We'll see what it looks like once they reach the line, though. This is the end of the lap here, coming into turn 17. Very tight and twisty right-hand hairpin into a left-hand hairpin, and then you got to get on the throttle. We saw that yesterday. That exit out of the final hairpin seems to be kind of one of the more critical corners, Joey.
It really is, because it leads you out onto this long straightaway. Now, I understand it as an arcing left-handed straightaway, but yes, it all does start down there at turn number 18, and you got to get the drive out of that very sharp left-hand corner. Remember, these cars are H-pattern gearboxes. They do not have the paddle shift. They do not have the sequential transmission, so all of the drivers are using all 3 pedals, the clutch pedal, that H-pattern transmission with their right hand. So sometimes you can get a little bit lost in that gearbox. You need to be down in their right gear exiting those slow corners in order to get that launch off of the corner.
So this looks like Hordes versus Buell here that we were watching momentarily, but then behind them, look at how close it is. Bobco, Richmond, and Griffin all for a top 5 as they come around through turn 4. You talked about how long it is out of that corner, and then you got to stretch the legs out of 5 up towards the chicane. Does look like Bobco was able to get himself some good distance there.
He's able to accelerate away, you're right, and this is that alternate bus stop chicane here. You see a few different layouts that they've got here at Ozarks International Raceway. A pretty neat racetrack that we've got out here in Missouri, and lots of different configurations, but like you have been hearing us say, 19 turns. The full track is what we're going to be running here, 3.97 miles. This is definitely one of the longest racetracks the drivers are going to visit this year.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think the only one longer that we're going to see is over at Road America, which will be the next round for these drivers, but a very different track to what we've got here, as there's so many corners and a lot of very fast sweeping ones you can see through the middle of this lap, as it looks like Griffin continuing to try to hold on to the back of Bobco here and not lose too much touch. That is for class position. That's for second and third in the Dark Horse Legends that they're fighting. Well, Smither leads that class up ahead of them.
I'm really waiting for the drivers to kind of settle into their performance bracket over here. I think our front two have already settled in. You know, the first couple laps from Will Lucas, down in the 30s, Nick Smither in the 240. But I think this group that we're watching between Shane, Walter, and Miller, they're still leaving a little bit of performance left out on the table. And I mentioned that because, Joe, remember yesterday, Miller Richmond was actually one of the fastest cars we had in the last half of the race, really caught up to that purple number 23, made a couple excellent passes, and then kind of found himself later in trouble towards the end of the race. But I think he's still got a little bit more performance to gain today.
Indeed. This is obviously middle of the day, very contrasting to what we saw yesterday, where it was right towards the end, right at sunset. So the sun going down lower, a lot of the track in shadow and right after a rain shower. So much cooler track conditions. I don't have the exact track temperature right now, but I have to imagine it is going to be much warmer on those Yokohama tires, which do a very good job, but you got to treat them right, especially on a track that demands so many G-forces on them throughout the lap.
We've seen these tires hold up to the 500-plus horsepower V8 Dark Horse Rs all season long, and you're right, you just have to be nice to them. The more that you abuse your equipment, it doesn't matter if it's the tires, if it's the brakes, if it's the transmission, whatever it is, the more that you kind of abuse the car early on, the less it's going to be there for you at the end of the race. So it is all kind of that management game. Don't take out too much now. You might need it in a little bit.
Hordes versus Buell. These are two of the younger drivers coming up. This sort of ladder system that Ford has put together, you get kind of two mixes, either drivers that are maybe a little bit more up there. That's our dark horse legends that are getting to live out some dreams, or maybe just towards the end of their career. And then you've got drivers such as Cale here and Andrew, who are setting their sights to try and climb up and work their way into the higher levels, maybe eventually a GT4 or GT3 Ford Mustang, or potentially someday at Le Mans in a prototype, as Ford has restarted their program up there at the very top of sports car racing. Right now, does look like Hordes is doing a pretty good job. Like we said yesterday, we were kind of watching to see if he could withstand the pressure. And he had a bit of trouble at times, maybe coming out of that final corner that we were talking about, out of turn 18. But wound up with a podium in the end, as we now hop on board with the number 8 of Cale Buell, who's had a tough last two races, honestly.
He had a little bit of tough luck back there at Coda, especially with the tire issue on the back straightaway. He did say that he got to come in and do the pit stop like he's always wanted to do, but I think that he would have much rather not had that failure out there. But you had just made the comment about how Andrew Hordes was kind of struggling out of turn 18 yesterday. That lap right there that we just watched, it seems like he might have fixed that issue. I think it was simply just being, call it in third gear instead of second gear. And if you're just in the wrong gear in that acceleration phase, everybody else is going to seem like they've got a little bit more motor, a little bit more performance to jump out of that corner. But it seems like that purple number 23 saw the problem and has rectified that.
And you see that little purple marker next to Will Lucas. That is signifying of the fastest lap of the race, to tell you how much quicker he is than everybody else. Oh, we'll have to get back to that in a second. There was a little bit of a run there from Buell, but unfortunately not enough of a braking zone down into the chicane of turn 6, it looks like. So he backs out. But back to my point, the fastest lap for Will Lucas is 5 seconds quicker than anybody else's fastest lap right now. Nick Smither, the next closest on the field. It is another day of domination from the 34.
And I'm going to go and look up exactly how fast it was, because timing and scoring shows a 2:33.99. I think I remember seeing 2:34s in qualifying, and that's on a light fuel load. So if Will Lucas is out there doing qualifying times, it just kind of puts it into perspective. Remember the very, very first couple of races over at NOLA Motorsports Park? He got in the car, he kind of felt everything out. improved over the weekend, said, you know what, between race one, after I won that thing, and race number two, I'm going to make some adjustments on the car. He went out there and got even faster in race number two. Over at Coda, he did the exact same thing. Joe, I just think this is what Will Lucas does on a race weekend, is that he constantly improves, and that's exactly what he's doing here again today.
Which is a good sign. You know, a driver that's resting on their laurels is going to start losing that time and losing out on potential gains if somebody else passes them up. So it's good to see that Will Lucas, who goes by again, does not set another faster lap, but maybe is just settling in now that he feels like he's happy with how quick he can go out there. Still a 2:34.6 last time by. So clearly incredibly fast. Nick Smithers, second overall, but leading in the Dark Horse Legends. And this battle that we've got on screen, this is for second in the Dark Horse class. This is to decide the next two podium steps behind Lucas.
I went back and took a look at those qualifying times. I think that Will was able to put in a 2:33.55 yesterday for the Miles Cup qualifying for that race. And so him doing a 2:33.9 here in the race during the heat of the day, it definitely goes to show you that that driver is doing their homework. They are studying the data. They are analyzing the car after every single session, and they constantly want to improve.
Breaking up the hill into the little kink of turn 3 that leads you into 4, almost a horseshoe coming around here, more than 180 degrees. 2 apexes you can see as they try to get to that curb, and then accelerating out through 5 once again and back down the hill into that run of the chicanes. Still the pressure being put on by Cale Buell. And the other thing that is interesting about this, these two are teammates, both racing under the Capaldi banner. So there's probably not much to hide between them, each of them getting to really know what the other is doing, understanding, of course, with the team, helping set up the cars. So how do you find an edge over your teammate?
Being in a big team like that, especially with Capaldi Racing having so many of these Mustangs out on the racetrack on any given weekend, is a good advantage, right? Let's just say if your teammate is a little bit faster in one corner or one section of the racetrack, you always have that data that you can pull up and review together. And I am a little bit more of a true visual learner, because the data, you know, it's the X's and Y's, the hard graphs that can kind of show you exactly where, but sometimes you also need to look at that in-car video. Where exactly are you placing the car that maybe makes you a little bit slower or a little bit faster? And when you're part of a big team like that, guess what? All of that access is right there on the computer.
Back behind the trees once again, coming up towards the hairpin of 14. So far, so good for Andrew Hordes. So what does Cale Buell need to do? As soon as I say that, a little bit off the apex there for Andrew coming through that right-hander, but he manages it well off the apex, it looks like, and accelerates away. So let's put you in the shoes of Cale here, Joey. What have you been noticing so far? What do you think that he needs to do to try to get by Andrew?
I'm actually going to kind of rewind to yesterday. Remember, these two were in a battle for the most part of the race in race number 1, and it seemed like when you were able to go up there and really start to lay on the pressure to that purple number 23, a few little cracks in the armor started to show themselves, maybe a little bit wide into turn number 1 or a little bit slow off of the corner in turn number 18 to kind of get into that acceleration phase. I think if I'm Cale Buell and I want this position, I'm just going to try to inch my way a little bit closer, try to lay on that pressure a little bit thicker, see if you can get your competitor to crack.
So as they come through the corners now, it's looking like he's doing well on that one, trying to make sure that that pressure is staying as close as possible, as much being laid on there and doing what he needs to do. Wow, within almost a car length as he flies through there. But on the other side, Andrew Hordes is trying to learn to soak that up. Defensive move this time, interestingly, coming into the chicane of 6.
Cale had a good opportunity to really kind of close in this gap a little bit more, because you're right. Andrew Hordes was defensive into that bus stop chicane, and Cale was right on the racing line. He just didn't opt to carry that rolling speed through those fast sweeping corners. So I think that maybe Cale is taking a little bit gingerly out here. I know that tried to kind of save the car and catch the car on day number 1 out here. It was a great job by the team to have everything fixed up and have them out here on the racetrack. So that could also be another challenge that this driver is trying to overcome, that hurdle of not only passing another car, but manhandling this racetrack and getting to know it as well.
Back into that little dip that is turn 11 there. Definitely an interesting one, the way it sends you into that left-hander after such a long period of fast sweeping corners. And then it picks up again here, climbing back up out of that little valley. And seems like Hordes is going to be able to keep it, at least for now. One thing that I have been kind of watching is Miller Richmond has been almost thereabouts on Walter Bobko. That's not for points paying positions, but it is for track position, a battle for 5th overall. They're about a second and a half apart, as Shane Griffin has fallen off of them, but is doing a great job today. He's sitting back there 3rd in class still, and about 17 seconds behind the pair of them.
Andrew did a nice job through this sector number 3 to kind of run away from Cale. This is kind of the biggest gap that he's had in the last few laps. Now, this is that slow turn number 18 exit, and that purple number 23 once again does a nice job driving off of the corner. So that problem that I talked about yesterday, Andrew has done a terrific job to go back there, look at the data, review it with the team, review it with his co-drivers, and see exactly where he can pick up the pace. And I got to say that these two drivers turning extremely consistent lap times, kind of sticking right in that 245, 246. And in fact, the last lap time between the two of them, only about 3/100ths of a second difference.
So that's the good thing. He's been able to really keep with him. It hasn't dropped off after laying on that pressure. Yeah, this view really shows you how big of a downhill it is out of 5 and up towards turn 6. Without the chicane, it'd be probably a very scary run into 7 there at the top of your screen there. So it's certainly looking like they're dealing well with the roller coaster of a circuit that is here. Meanwhile, checking back in behind them, it looks like that is Bobco versus Richmond. Going to be a little bit harder to tell these two apart, very similarly painted. But Bobco has a few accents on his car, whereas Richmond is a mostly snow white machine.
It is pretty cool getting all of these, call it still camera shots around this Ozarks International Racetrack. After all, this is a relatively new facility out here in Missouri, and of course, welcoming these Mustang Cup competitors. I had mentioned yesterday, it's kind of neat seeing the Mustangs around here. The Pasick family, of course, built this place, and they are plenty familiar with that Mustang platform. Believe they did some Mustang Challenge racing a handful of years ago, and then, of course, have went on to race several different Mustang GT4s throughout different series here in the professional ranks of North America. So I think it's almost fitting that the Mustang Cup here for the first year is at Ozarks.
Yeah, I'm glad that they were able to secure a round for this place. This is my first time getting a call race at this track, and getting familiar with it. It's definitely won me over. I'd love to see some more series try to rock up here and try some racing as we now watch our leader, as Will Lucas now, let's see, already 30 seconds ahead. We're just about halfway into this one, 21 minutes plus a lap to go, and it's 40 minutes plus a lap for the entire length of the race. This time, thankfully, without the moisture on the track, we're able to start it from the very get-go without having to wait behind the safety car to make sure that conditions were safe. So full race distance for our drivers for the Parnelli Cup race.
I had mentioned that Will's fastest lap time, a 2:33.99. I've also seen a 2:34.0, multiple low 2:34s. In fact, this previous lap time, a 2:34.26. That is some extreme consistency out here. Yesterday, we saw the lap times fluctuate a little bit more, kind of get up into that 35, 36, 37 second bracket, depending on if he's running on some lap traffic. But a beautiful day out here to be racing one of these 500 horsepower Dark Horse R's. And Will Lucas looks plenty comfortable inside a second home inside that race car.
Well, and take us a bit inside the head of a driver like Will Lucas, Joey, because they've had, multiple days of testing. They've had practice sessions leading up to the qualifying session. They've had another race. So what is there for someone like Lucas to learn here in the last race of the weekend? What is he paying attention to?
You might say, oh man, he's got a 33-second gap. He can just take it easy. Yes, well, he could. But when you're an aspiring race car driver, you always take whatever track time you get as a learning opportunity. So I think if I'm Will Lucas, I'm focusing on, hey, is there a corner that I'm just not 100% confident on? Can I maybe adjust my racing line? Is there something that I can go back and review on the data to say, hey, if I drive a little bit differently, it's going to kind of have the vehicle react a little bit differently, maybe a little bit happier in certain sections. But I think that if I'm Will, I'm always looking to improve. Remember, just a couple weeks ago, he was a couple thousand miles away over in France doing that Mustang challenge. So that was a huge accomplishment and challenge for him. You just kind of have to keep that momentum. Even though you're 30 seconds ahead over here, you can still constantly improve. And in fact, Joe, he just improved again. Fastest lap of the race, 2:33.8.
Wow. Yeah, you're right about him just not laying back. Wow. An impressive lap around here, just continuing to drop the times down as the weekend goes on. But now we've been turning our attention to this battle for third overall, but this is for second in the Dark Horse class. And still Andrew Rhodes managing to hold on at least for now. But Buell's not letting him rest one bit out there, just filling up his mirrors each and every time by here at that timing stand. Stays close now down into turn one, but not quite close enough. That's a bit too fast of a corner, perhaps this time, for him to try and sneak through. And I was trying to look on the front left. It does look like the contact that he had made yesterday maybe had a little bit of replaced bodywork on that front left side.
Yeah, and remember it was Andrew that got into Miller there at the end of the race in race number one, and Cale was able to kind of take advantage of that. So some good racecraft. And in fact, here comes Cale Buell. This is going to go into the bus stop chicane. This is an aggressive move on the outside, but he put his car in a great position, and he gets that spot from Andrew Rhodes.
Excellent move from Cale Buell. That'll move him up into P2. And apologies for misremembering there. So that bodywork probably then from the damage that he got from turn one earlier in practice this weekend rather than any car contact. But in the meantime, Rhodes is still on the podium. That's the good news for him in that number 23. So he's got Miller Richmond trying to chase him down, but if I'm seeing this right, it's 1 minute and 11 seconds back to Miller. So Andrew not under an immediate threat. In fact, Miller's going to have to try and get by Walter Bobko. Although, no, Miller's dropped back from Bobko. It is now Griffin that we can see on our screen in that green machine that is caught up and is trying to take sixth place away.
A great job from Shane Griffin. That last lap was about 4 seconds faster than Miller Richmond, that white car that he is catching right now. I was just about to say when we were watching that Cale versus Andrew battle, this might be the time that we see a little bit of a shift in the race. Remember, this is a 40-minute plus one lap race, so call it a 42, 43-minute race, potentially up to a little bit longer than that with the pace laps. And we're just past that halfway point. So is when the drivers really have to focus on closing out the race. They've had all the adrenaline going from getting the green flag, from being in these battles for the first half of the race. Now it's up to them to manage the rest of it and close it out with great performance.
Okay, so I checked 243.5, the quickest for Cale. let's see what happens now that he's in clear air. And if he can get anywhere close to Lucas's 2:33.9, 2:33.8, I think we said was his quickest lap. So I'm not expecting that, but he has been unleashed. And, speaking of not expecting things, I think Griffin just got by Richmond.
I believe so, yeah. So Shane Griffin moved himself by that white number 5 of Miller Richmond. So after Miller kind of got knocked around a little bit yesterday at the end of the race, still trying to get a grip on this beautiful racetrack out here. See him actually a little bit off of the pace right there after Shane Griffin got by. So I wonder if he might be having a little bit of an issue with his car. Oh, Shane in a little bit deep there, but he's going to hang on to it.
Okay, yeah, he's way back there now. At first, I was worried that maybe something had truly happened to the car and he was off, but it looks like he is still going behind. So, yeah, there's maybe a few problems for Miller, who we have to remember, while he does have some support from Capaldi Racing, he's still racing for his own team in a single-car venture, so a very small outfit out there, as is the FCF racing car that we see on your screen now, this bright green car of Shane Griffin. So they're trying to do a lot with very little, and honestly very impressed with Griffin, because this is a definite improvement from that number 4 machine, from that number 4 driver who has been actually using his co-driver who runs the Miles Cup to help kind of coach him, to help get him some more speed out on the track. And I'd say it's paying off.
100%. You're right. I think that this is probably Shane's best performance so far. He kind of had a similar deal back at Coda, where a little bit slow to get going, and then every single lap was improving. And here at Ozarks, he's kind of doing the same thing, doing a nice picking spot, and actually just kind of a performance level as we watch Nick Smither here. Looks like Shane is doing laps about just faster than the car in front of him, and that's Bobco. So he might have one more on the plate before the race is over. And as we're watching this car of Nick Smither, I had been talking about how that Will Lucas went. What driver has been doing the exact same thing? His fastest lap here, this seconds fast, he qualified over in the Miles Cup race today. So Nick Smither doing a great job.
So as we continue to watch Smither just tick away laps, another excellent second place potentially for him. So things going well for that number 58 is Cale Buell. Let's see, last time by, just crossed the line, 2:43.9. That's not his quickest lap. So even though he's been given that clear air, apparently not able to quite pick it up as much as he would like. Still, he's pulled a gap by about 2.5 seconds over Andrew Horde. So he's got himself out of range, at least attacking range at this stage, but maybe wasn't being held up as much as we anticipated. Here now, Nick Smither has a little bit of traffic, I think, in the form of Bobco, and Bobco sees him coming with the blue flags. Excuse me, that's the 5. That is Richmond that he's just going by. Apologies. So Richmond pulls off to the side and lets him through.
I was just kind of mentioning how great of a job Nick has been doing. Of course, he was one of those drivers to go overseas and compete in that Mustang Challenge event over at Le Mans. And like I was saying, has just been doing a terrific job here this weekend as well, really kind of taking the charge in this Dark Horse Legends class. Of course, won the class yesterday, and then has constantly been improving here today. I had mentioned that last lap time of 2:38.5. Not quite as fastest, but he is in the 2:38s, and that's almost 2 seconds faster than what he qualified this car at. So another one of these drivers just constantly improving throughout the weekend. Great job from this 58.
Yeah, I think he'll be pleased with back-to-back wins in the Dark Horse Legends, without a doubt, after his season maybe got on to a so-so start, but was putting in good results, and took a second at NOLA and the Miles Cup, and then a 4th at Coda, and then down in the Parnelli Cup, he was back-to-back seconds at NOLA and Coda. This time improving yet again to make that 5 podiums out of 6 races potentially, if he can just bring this one home over the next 10 minutes. About a quarter of the race left to go here. And unfortunately, with us, I believe, missing Craig Capaldi for the remainder of the season, this puts Nick Smither in a very good position to potentially come away with a championship run.
That last lap from Nick was actually even faster. I had mentioned 2:38s. Well, he just ripped off a 2:37.70. So he has not given up yet either out there, even though he's got, call it about a minute over Cale Buell in third place overall. You see Nick running up on what is Shane Griffin. This is not going to be a pass for position. This is going to be a lapped car that Nick is going to go ahead and get around in one of these faster sections of the racetrack, navigate to drivers left here and scoot right on by. Nice job there from Shane Griffin, being heads up, seeing that faster car in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, we've mentioned it before, this being that opening rung on the ladder system for forward performance, that this is teaching drivers that etiquette in a lot of cases, learning how to deal with that lap traffic coming along, or learning how to overtake them if you're on the other end of things. So a great job by everybody involved, just making a nice smooth transition throughout here. By the way, Cale Buell set a personal best, a 2:43.4 last time. So now he's starting to pick up the pace a little bit and really finding his feet. But we've turned our attention back to Will Lucas once more. And what did we say? Was a 2:33.8 was his quickest? He's just hit a 2:33.9 last time by. So within a tenth of his fastest lap.
Consistency. And let's just say, if you're playing driver coach or team manager, that's exactly what I want to see out of my driver, because that means he's limiting the variables, right? If you're doing the exact same thing in the exact same corner every single lap, theoretically, your lap time should be exactly the same. And so that's what consistency is called. Will Lucas is kind of the model of it here in the Mustang Cup. He is turning incredibly fast laps, and he is turning them over and over and over again with minimal amounts of mistakes. You got to love to see it if you're that driver coach.
Very much so. And this is the other side of that that ladder system, not just teaching drivers, but also finding that talent. And we've said it multiple times, but do believe that they have found something great here in Will Lucas, who's probably well on his way to climbing up at least a few rungs on the ladder. We'll see how high he can go, but we're expecting that Mustang Challenge, of course, had its inaugural season last year, is the next step up after Mustang Cup, and anticipate that he'll probably be finding his way up to there as long as the funds are there for that off-leash motorsports team. But down through the hills we go once more, up towards turn 16, 7 minutes plus a lap left for a potential another win. As so far, it's been only this number 34 on the top step of the podium. And that's not just in class, that's overall for each and every race of the first season in Mustang Cup.
I look at the attitude of this car, and of course that Ford has built a terrific race car, so it handles all of the bumps and curbs with ease out here. But it's also up to the driver to kind of attack those sections of the racetrack. And he is not slowing up a 2:33.85 that last time by. Wow. So another incredibly fast lap. And you look at him through, call it the bus stop chicane that previous lap, he was putting the car all the way into the dirt on the apex. There you see once again on these early corners, call it turns 3 and 4 up here, he is using all of the racetrack from the entry to the apex all the way to the exit. He is maximizing those radiuses. He is always trying to improve out here. Here is this bus stop chicane section that he is going to be coming up to. And you see there's a few different lines. And once again, Will is just hauling the mail through there, using every piece of asphalt plus a little bit of dirt.
And just kicking it up here and there. You can get away with that for sure, as he'll fly up into 9 and 10. Man, it is so high speed here. These cameras really show you just how much they're cooking along this part of the straight. And they get some serious speed, thankfully able to get the car woed up in time for 10 before he breaks down into turn 11 and that dip down into the hairpin before it'll climb back uphill once again. And these drivers, here we see, it looks like Shane Griffin coming through that part of the lap pretty soon, as he currently still sits in 6. After he has passed Miller Richmond, he's pulled away by 24 seconds. And actually, it looks like has maybe gained a tiny bit on Walter Bobko. So continuing to learn and to grow and find speed out there. Shane Griffin for FCF Racing, just improving with every lap.
This is Nick Smither going through what was turn 7, going up to what is turn number 8 here on this racetrack here. I love the elevation. I love the roller coaster like feel that you've got here at Ozarks International Raceway. Joe, you had mentioned kind of some of the guardrails relatively close to some of these corners out here, but that kind of gives you the tunnel vision like you're on a street circuit that you can't necessarily see around those corners. And as a driver, that's just an added challenge that you have to kind of be a little bit more brave if you want to tame this amazing 3.97 mile circuit.
You have to know what you can do in that car for sure. And another lap by, getting close to the end of this one. And don't forget, this is not like what you may expect of most typical timed races where you'll get the white flag when before the clock gets to 0. The clock gets to 0 first, and then they bring out the white flag for the 1 to go signal for what we assume will be Will Lucas. And yeah, the other thing I do like about that Armco being nice and close to the track is one thing that you get when you have objects right by the racetrack is that sense of speed. You see the onboards and it feels so much faster.
It really does. And then if you're a spectator out at this racetrack, there's a few good areas that you can go and watch these cars going by. But yes, if you can get up close to those guardrails, you get the sound, you get the air moving as the cars go by. You really do get that sense of speed. And here, you got to remember, this is nearly 4 miles in length that these 500 horsepower Dark Horse R's are doing. 2.5 minute lap time. So the average speed out here, quite rapid.
Definitely one of the longer racing circuits in North America, this one. So they've put them up against a challenge. It's not often that you're talking about 2+ minute lap times, especially in cars that are as quick as these. So they have a lot to memorize over each and every lap. And coming up, yeah, we still have plenty of time. So this time by probably going to be 2 laps to go for Will Lucas as he comes up to just the last few corners with now sub 2:30 left on the clock. Last time by he was a little bit slower. It's down to a 2:35.1 for what it's worth. But again, he has got such a massive gap at this stage, over a minute down to Nick Smither between he and himself. That's not the biggest gap we've got, though. It looks like Andrew Hordes over Bobko is up to 1:30 right now. So Andrew doing an excellent job there in the mid-pack, still on the podium.
Going to have to give Will a little bit of a hard time here if he has another off-pace lap. I've been talking up his consistency doing these 33s and 34s, and just as you pointed out, a 35.1 that last time by. We should be getting 2 laps to go here. You see that timer, 1:20 still to get around this lap and then start another one. And actually, you know what? A little bit slower on the pace yet again, 2:36.3. So it might be finally that time in the race that the team calls up Will and says, hey, you've got a 1:05 lead on second place. And then if we go all the way back to in class, you got pretty much a 2.5 minute lead. You're going to be coming up to lap Cale Buell here soon enough. You can kind of decide what you want. You can keep on going fast, or you can kind of cruise it home to the end.
Well, and to give a sense of the advantage that he's had, Hordes, who you saw on this camera shot just briefly ahead of him, is fourth overall right now. Buell third overall. And they're still relatively close to one another. I'm not sure if he'll get to Cale. That'll be a little bit tight, but he could have lapped up to everybody but third on the racetrack out here today in the overall field. So just stunning in 40 minutes plus a lap too. So it's a sprint race in these cars. There's no scheduled pit stops. It's all down to just outright raw pace. I'm pretty sure he's going to be able to get by Andrew here shortly, as he's got a full lap coming up behind him.
Yeah, and you say that he might not catch Cale Buell. It depends if he gets by Andrew Hordes. Nice job from Will committing to the inside. Andrew left the door open. Will did not think twice. He just simply dove it down to the apex, took away that position. And to my talking point here, Will is turning lap times about fast enough to catch and pass Cale Buell with one lap remaining here. I think that might be the challenge, that if you want to give Will one more carrot on the end of the lure to go chase, it's to put that other car lap down.
That was definitely confidence and trust in his competitors, now that these drivers have had numerous races out on the track with one another. And Will obviously knows he can trust Andrew sending that car up the inside to lap him. All right, let's see what it looks like as they come to the line to get the white flag here shortly. Can Cale Buell finish on the lead lap of this race, or is he going to be caught and passed by Will Lucas with one more circuit on this 4th of July weekend?
Come bend it over the start-finish line. You see zeros on the timing board, white flag. Final lap here at Ozarks International Raceway. A fantastic weekend of racing that we've had over the July 4th weekend. And of course, a little bit of that mixed weather yesterday, but it held off for a nice dry race, and then a beautiful sunshine for the Parnelli Cup race here today on Sunday.
So it was about 10 seconds faster that last lap in comparison to Cale Buell. So you're right. I think he's got a good shot at trying to get by him. And as they come over the crest here into 6, yeah, that is Cale. I think that we see directly in front of him with that pale green on the roof of the car already. And around the outside, Cale does not fight it. He allows him through.
Once again, just a decisive move from Will. He saw the competitors leaving the racing line, and there goes another one. I believe that might have been Bobco or Miller Richmond that he got by the other white dark horse R. So now this is coming up through, call it the paddock section of this racetrack, up over what is turn 8 and 9. And now we start to bend back down the hill, what is into, call it sector 3 on this long, nearly 4-mile circuit throughout the Missouri countryside.
Just a few more corners to go, and he'll collect his 6th checkered flag of the season. Will Lucas has been something to behold here in the first ever season of the Mustang Cup. This time, going to be the Parnelli Cup here that he'll grab another one. Again, if you had missed us earlier in the show, this is a separate championship from what they run on the Saturday races here in this series. It's its own set of points that you're collecting. And coming out of turn 14, everything nice and steady for this number 34 car. Just a couple more to go, weaving through the trees and amongst the Armco, down through 16, sizing up the braking for turn 17 now. A couple slow corners, and then he can get on the throttle all the way to the line. Round 17, around blind, turn 18, past the pit entry for the final time in this race. And to the line for the number 34. It's appropriate for the red, white, and blue to take victory here on America's birthday weekend. Will Lucas takes the win at Ozarks International Raceway.
Picking up exactly where he left off yesterday, and of course where he has stood every single round of this Mustang Cup Championship. I saw Cale Buell cross the line. He will be your official second place in that dark horse class, as well as Andrew Hordes in that purple number 23. He is going to finish on the podium, fourth place overall, but third in class.
Got to give a big tip of the hat to both Cale and Andrew, coming away with a good fight out there. And Cale, I think, honestly, probably very happy with themselves, rebounding and coming up with a second. And Andrew as well, like you said, having that little bit of contact yesterday, coming back, getting himself onto the podium, and collecting some valuable points here today, showing that he's not going to let it get him down. But what about this man, Nick Smither? His first win of the season last time out. Make that win number 2 now for him. Back-to-back here in the Ozarks in Missouri. And that'll put Bobco and Griffin in third and fourth in the Dark Horse Legends class. We're just waiting for them to cross the line in a few moments as well.
I got to imagine that Nick Smither is happy with the performance this weekend. You got to remember he was one of those drivers that was over there in France for that Mustang Challenge event at Le Mans. He did a terrific job, especially in race number 2, to finish 5th in class, and carries that momentum here into Ozarks International Raceway with this Mustang Cup event. Of course, the Parnelli Cup here on Sunday, and Nick doing that terrific job to bring home that win in that Legends class. And Joe, like you were saying, just waiting on Walter Bobco and Shane Griffin. They are actually going to be rounding out that Dark Horse Legends podium. There goes Bobco. I think that Shane Griffin is going to be coming to the line here momentarily.
Yep, with Bobco past, that pretty much seals it, because Griffin, there we go. It looks like he's on his way as our flagman waves the flag for that number 4 machine. So let's go through your finishing order for the last race of the weekend in the Parnelli Cup. It's going to be Will Lucas, again, our winner today, with an impressive drive to 1:10 over the nearest competitor, Nick Smither, finishing on the lead lap, the only other car to complete all 17 laps of this race. Then it's going to be Cale Buell, finishing third overall behind him, but second in class as Andrew Hordes rounds out the podium there in the Dark Horse class. Walter Bobco finishing second behind Smither, who won in the Dark Horse Legends, and then Shane Griffin finishing third in the Dark Horse Legends. And finally, last on the field is going to be Miller Richmond today in the number 5. We'll have more racing this season a little bit later on. We'll be back, of course, with the racing up in Wisconsin, heading up north to Elkhart Lake. Joey, I'm glad to have you with me once again. It's been an absolute blast this weekend.
Absolutely. It's been terrific racing between the Miles Cup race yesterday and the Parnelli Cup race today. And I mean, Will Lucas continues his dominance here in the Mustang Cup. I wish I could say I'm surprised, but that driver has definitely been on top of it. And once again, hats off to Nick Smither, winning both days in that Dark Horse Legends class.
Agreed. An excellent job from him. Again, thank you for joining us here on Forward Performance. I'm Joe Peak with Joey Atterbury. We hope to see you when we return in Wisconsin, but until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.